get started here, I wanted to get an idea to start with of kind of who's here. How many of you here are not in the business program from other? It's okay, so quite a few. Of everyone here, how many are thinking of starting a business? Okay, so we got some budding entrepreneurs. Cool. And of those, maybe how many online businesses that you've thought of anyway? Ideas. Okay, cool. That gives me a good idea of who's here. I don't want to have my company, SolutionStream, is highly technical in focus, so it's really easy for me to start talking tech and pretending like everything's about web and tech, and we can go with acronyms all day long and lose half the people I'm talking to, and everyone kind of gets the glazed look in their eye. Don't want that to happen, so I'm going to be on the lookout for the glazed look. If someone on the front row here, if I start talking too much tech, kick me, okay? So SolutionStream is a consulting company. We do technical software consulting for medium and large-sized companies. And we've been around for almost 12 years now. I started with two partners, me and Jason Thielen, who's been down here quite a bit, and we have a third partner recently. So it's been a great ride for the last 12 years. We've seen multiple cycles in the industry. We rode a huge wave up with the dot-coms. We rode a wave down after that thing crashed for a little bit. And now since 2004, 2005, we've been riding this new wave, which, by the way, is a lot more fun than the first wave, believe it or not. You hear about the dot-com days, but I actually like this wave a lot more. We're a service-based business, and we've just spent the last 12 years dialing in the process of software development. It's very complicated. It's very tricky to do it right. It's very expensive. And so we have just stayed on the service side and have been able to provide to our customers many years of successful projects. So that's kind of at a high level what we do. We have project managers on staff, software architects, programmers, graphic designers, QA, salespeople. So all of that is to keep the machinery running. Clients that we've done work for, BYU, so the Blackboard app, we've actually done quite a bit of work on that very application. At the LDS Church, we did the LDS.org rewrite, which now is about 2 years old maybe, but they have a new site, that's a year or so old. We did that layout, and we've done a bunch of the pieces that belong to that, like the youth site, a bunch of stuff in membership systems, both what they manage there, also what the ward clerks use. So those are kind of at a high level, some sample projects. Franklin Covey, Bear River Insurance. We've kind of been moving up the chain in terms of the size of our clients, which we really like. So those are some pretty big companies. We've been growing at about 30 or 40% per year. For the past 5 or 6 years, we've been on Inc. 500, Inc. 5000 a couple times, and it's just been great. Jason and I, about 4 or 5 years ago, found our third partner, who is in charge of the day-to-day operations, and he's doing a phenomenal job at running all the day-to-day stuff at our company, which leaves Jason and I able to focus more on growth and strategic things like racquetball, kiteboarding, strategic. No, but in all seriousness, finding the balance between it's actually been a blast, because there is a balance to be had at some point. And I do find now that I have plenty of time for the fun stuff, and there's also time enough for the work stuff too. And just juggling that is quite fun. I don't find that we're so heads down that there's no time for fun, but it wasn't always that way, of course. For our business, we never had to borrow or raise any money, so we own our entire company, and that's a wonderful thing. I wouldn't have it any other way. And having partners has been great too. We've been able to figure it out. It's had its ups and downs, but I highly recommend partners. So just to kind of paint the picture here a little then, I put a few jokes on here because, do you guys follow Dilbert at all? I like Dilbert, especially because they have a lot of jabs at consulting companies and IT, and that's what we deal with, and so I find these particularly funny. I asked Wolfgang to join us. He's a software genius, if not a legend. He knows more than all of you put together, plus his name is Wolfgang. Some say his talent is a genetic mutation. Others say that God speaks to him in Unix. All we know for sure is that he glows and he never needs to eat. I feel the chill. It means he's approaching. Please don't reprogram my DNA and make me a monkey man. And it's Wally. People make a lot of assumptions when you change your name to Wolfgang and stop shaving. So some IT guys, some programmers have this mysticism about them, right? This is a great one about project pain, and boy, can I tell you how many times we experience this. Like this is every day in our life. Our project plan will follow the usual arc. Phase 1 will be unwarranted optimism supported by delusions of competence. Phase 2, obstructionists will slither out of their lairs and try to smother our dreams. Ignorance and envy will fuel rumors that get repeated until they morph into common knowledge. Resources will be allocated based on misinformation and favoritism, and requirements will drift until the project is both undesirable and impossible. That brings us to the second week. I want my unwarranted optimism back. So that's funny because delivering large projects is exactly like that. It's incredibly complicated. And starting your own company and dealing with all that stuff is a lot like that too. So wanted to spend a few minutes kind of giving a history of how we got started and where all this came from, and then some of the motivations behind it, just to paint the picture of the lessons that I've learned. So three phases I want to talk about. One is kind of the history of SolutionStream. The next piece will be lessons that I learned through that process, and then the last one will be some pro tips for, we're in the web business. We're on the front line, if you will, of building web stuff, and I just thought I'd throw some suggestions out there, and then we'll do some Q&A after that. So if I have it right, Dr. Little, I have till 45? Okay. Okay, so till 10 till, and then Q&A. Got it. Okay. So my history in SolutionStream started way back when I was 12 or 13. My dad had this crazy notion, saying that sarcastically, that life would go better for us if we learned how to sell, right? So he wanted us to be unafraid of being in front of people, unafraid to sell things. So he got us out somehow in front of people. Oh, I missed this slide. Like I said, this is a new presentation. I wanted to talk about defining moments, and I came across this slide. Now, there's a defining moment for that guy. That kind of defined his career the wrong way, didn't it? Costa. So, selling stuff. What do these three things have in common besides all crafty things of which I know nothing or really don't even have any interest? All these three things have in common is we made and sold all of this stuff when I was a teenager. We picked up Christmas trees from the side of the road and charged people $2 for every tree we'd pick up and then take either into the hills to burn or something like that. Even though the city would do it, we earned money doing it. I don't know where we got the idea for the hangers, man. But we made hangers with yarn, and we would take them around and sell people and just feel so proud of ourselves that we could sell these hangers. And then also grapevine wreaths. We had tons of grapevines in our backyard, what to do with all that extra stuff. We made wreaths. My mom decorated them, and we sold them for 10 or 15 bucks each. Boy, we just pat ourselves on the back and learn how to sell and learn how to talk to people. What I didn't realize until now is as an adult, if any kid comes to my door who has been industrious, I'm going to give him money, no matter what he is selling, right? So that's why it was successful in hindsight. But you know what? Kids don't know that. They're believing that they're successful, and they are successful. So I say, more power to them. The other thing that kind of was happening, and I didn't know it, as I was, you've heard of the 10,000 hour rule? Great thing. I mean, if you haven't listened to or read that book, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, whole section is about 10,000 hours. Love that concept. So I was getting my 10,000 hours in on tech. I didn't even know it when I was 14 to about 18 or 20. And we played around at home with every new computer that came out. You guys would laugh at the kinds of computers that were out back then. But that's the first time a personal computer was even in someone's home. It was unbelievable. Commodore 64 and Atari 2600, cartridge-driven things. You could finally put a disk drive in. That was really cool. Then I hacked it. Then I learned how to copy games. Oops. Then I learned how to go into the games and hack your score and your life points in the game so that you could actually have a lot more life. Then I learned how to write my own game. So I was an early hacker in tech at 14, 15, just messing around. Learned basic on my own from a little book that my parents accidentally bought. But I was getting my 10,000 hours in, and I didn't even know it. I was just having fun. No one was making me do it. And it surprised me. One time that kind of stands out is my dad brought home this brand new IBM PC. It was one of the first powerful computers that ever came out. And he was trying to get the disk drive to work with WordPerfect 5.2 and a dot matrix printer. And these were mysterious, magical new pieces of technology. And I had it up and running really quick. And then pretty soon, the guys from the church offices called me and actually came to my house to figure out to see how I had set that up, because they had been unable to figure that out. And I somehow figured it out. I don't even remember how I figured it out, but that was kind of cool to see that I had learned as much as some of those adults who had been in that industry for years. So I went on from there to get my schooling. I came here to BYU and loved it. I kind of regret that I was in the big rush that I was. I don't know why I was in such a huge rush, but I really rushed it. I did it in less than 4 years. I moved on immediately, like with a 1-month break, to get my MBA from the U, and did that in 1 year. Again, I was in a huge rush. I don't know why. I guess I didn't want any debt. I was getting married, and I wanted to be in my career really fast. But I think I did cheapen. I kind of didn't get as much out of my education as I hoped I would have, because I was just blazing through it. But there's pros and cons to that. I guess I was very focused on it. But during that time, I started working. I taught myself programming that was actually beneficial. So back then it was client-server stuff, Visual Basic and Access. And I never took one single computer class, other than there was like 2 or 3 that I got through IS here in this program. But I learned COBOL. Really useful, huh? And it was those, I don't know, I just didn't find those interesting or useful, because what I was learning already was way ahead of what school was teaching me, which, again, I didn't get that at the time because I was just having too much fun learning and doing my own thing. But I quickly figured out that I could make $10 an hour in the computer lab, actually over there in the Cannon Center, which you can see right there. Or I could earn $40 an hour doing some programming projects for some clients that I had rounded up. So that was my very first time that I actually converted my knowledge into making money. And it was pretty cool that I was doing making 4 times as much money for a fourth the work. So I like that math a lot. And that actually put me through school with no debt. So I got my MBA and got my first clients up at the U. My clients weren't at the U, but I was going to the U at that time. And actually, my MBA program project was I wrote my business plan for SolutionStream. And I thought, let's think of a service-based company that takes what I'm already doing and makes money at it. And I really, even at that time, didn't put it together that a few short years later, I would actually implement the plan and be running and making great money at it. I thought it was some point in the distance. So I think I might be missing some slides here. No, all right on track. So up there at the U, I had a part-time teacher come in who actually was from BYU. And they did a trade where a guy from the U came here to BYU to teach, and a guy from here went up there. And he was totally disruptive to the U, let me tell you. It was so funny. He was talking church, he was talking religion, he was offending a lot of people in my class because he was just acting like a normal BYU teacher. And that didn't fly up there, and it was a lot of people in that class didn't like it. But he said something that really stuck out, that one of those phrases that just sticks in your head and it kind of drives what you do. He said his goal always was he wanted a business that would make him money when he wasn't there. Because until that point, I had been making money at it, but it was every hour in exchange for $40 of work, right? So I thought, man, you can make great money, but if I go on vacation, it stops. So seems really basic, but that's really actually very important to think about what your lifestyle is and how you want it, and that was important to me. Another mentor that I found up there who is Steven Studdert. I actually got an interview with him and a chance to talk, and I painted my picture of I could go into business right now. I have this business plan. I have my MBA, and he said, and it was wise counsel when I took it, he said, you should really go into industry work in this industry for a few years, figure out who the clients are, figure out how it all works, then start your company. And I took that to heart and went to work for 3 different companies. And again, that time period was very frustrating and very short, but extremely necessary to get to where we got. Without that, I don't know if we would have been able to be as successful as we were. It's a big risk because once you're ready to start your career and you want to launch your own business, if you don't do it right then and you go to work for corporate America, so to speak, there is a big risk that you'll get content there, that you'll get embedded, you'll get comfortable, and you won't ever launch your business. And actually, the farther down the road you go, you get a mortgage, you get a family, it becomes more and more risky to launch your business. So you just have to consider those things, but I think we timed it pretty good. But I did go to work for about 5 years for companies, and it was good learning and good experience. So the first one of those I mentioned was the LDS Church. Learned how to program there, built a bunch of systems. I was a maverick in all my companies. I always got in trouble because I would start coding stuff without permission, and I would start building and hooking into their databases and giving users what they wanted with no permission. And I got in big trouble at Nu Skin for doing that. I was the manager of the web development group there, and I was building this whole system on the side that I was going to make money from. Nu Skin needed it. They wanted it. They would pay money for this, except that no one out there was providing it. So I thought, I'll provide it. But apparently there's this thing called conflict of interest, where as an employee, you can't work as a contractor for that same company and earn money. Anyway, I got a smack down at Nu Skin about that. It was all fine. It all worked out. But what it showed me was that I wasn't personally aligned with working for a large company. I thought I wanted to be a director, the parking stall. I got my MBA. I want a nice parking spot, a nice corner office, a nice title. I thought those things were important to me, and because that's kind of what gets drilled into your head in school and MBA and all, that means success, right? When push came to shove and I was actually down there doing that, I didn't find it very fulfilling. I was frustrated. No one could get anything done. The very genesis of my company is that all the software projects that Nu Skin was trying to do were all tanking. And all we do is sit around and talk about it. And I was just like, let me just code and solve these problems. We'll get it done. Just get all these politics out of the way and let me and a team code. And so that's kind of where the frustration built for me to start the company and actually go out and do it. Because you'd be surprised at how inefficient, well, maybe you wouldn't be, thanks to Dilbert, but big companies like that, even small ones, it's inefficient, they're not doing it right. And so I just relished the opportunity to get out and do it and build something that actually worked. So, having to hurry kind of fast here. I got a lot of material I want to cover. So I actually got, at Nu Skin, I switched jobs like 3 or 4 times inside the company. I kept noticing about myself, and this goes to one of the things that I learned, which I'll come to. I got bored really fast in a job, really fast. Like, I'd get a new job, I think that was like the cat's meow, Oh, if I could only be the manager of this or the director of that. And then pretty soon I'd have that job. 3 months later, I'd be like, this is all there is to it? I don't like this job. I'm bored of it. What's next? And so I kept looking around. Finally, at some point at Nu Skin, I decided, you know what? I don't like any of this. I'm going to fire myself. I'm going to retool and get a different job. So I actually approached the director at that time and said, I don't want to be a director anymore. I don't want to be a manager. Just make me a programmer again. And he was like, are you kidding me? What are you doing? It's like, that's more fun. I was having fun programming. And so I demoted myself, helped hire my replacement, and reported to him. And that was all good. I actually went back to programming and was loving it. And that actually was my stepping stone out of the company to the next company, which I very strategically picked to be a small company because I thought, if I'm ever going to start my company, I better see what small companies are all about. So I picked a small company to go work for, small sales, no IT department. I was the only guy there, plus contractors and a few part-time people. They're a great local company doing cables and connectors, docks, sync cables, all kinds of stuff like that, and they needed a lot of IT help. So I went to work for them as the CTO, did a lot of programming, wore a lot of hats, saw what partners look like, saw how a small company runs. And all of this was taking the advice of Steve Studdert way back when, who said, go get industry advice. So at some point in there, I finally said, all right, I've seen all this. This is all good. I'm ready to start. And we're right in the .com times, and found Jason Thielen, actually my business partner there at New Skin. Actually hired him onto the team, and it was great. We got along right from the start. We started hatching plans, and we both started SolutionStream by quitting our current jobs that we worked at and getting our that ex-job, I guess an ex-employer, as our first customer. So we thought that was quite a coup to turn around and go in one conversation, say, I quit, I'm out. By the way, will you be a customer? And the price is more. They did it because they were frustrated. You know, they wanted help, and they believed in us, I guess. So that got us started. When we started at SolutionStream, we just started figuring out our model, and there was a lot of pain, there was a lot of growth, there was a lot of difficulty, but mostly it was just fun. It was thrilling. It was exciting getting those first checks. You know, when we first started getting our first checks in, it's just hilarious. Our first big check we ever got, we went out and each of us bought a brand new Tahoe. We were just so excited. We're like, cha-ching, because we never made that kind of money. And our first big check with SolutionStream was like almost an entire year's salary where we were before. And that's what blew our minds. We're just like, this is so easy. Let's go buy a car. Bam, we were out the door and getting all the options and everything. That was kind of a crazy thing to do, but you know what? That was the dream we had, and that was the fun of it, and that really fueled the fire to go and do something bigger and better. So sometimes you got to give yourself permission to be a little crazy and have a little fun like that. So the past 10 years has been awesome. We've been able to grow now, like I said, from just a few employees up to about 90 people. We've really figured out the model on how we hire people, how we recruit, how we retain them, how do we do sales, who are our customers. I mean, that's a huge learning thing for us, is to figure out why do people buy from us, when do they buy, who is not a customer. We made some horrific mistakes early on because we were so eager for projects. We'd take someone who we didn't know they were giving us all these red flags, so to speak. Now we have this internal document. It's probably just internal to our heads, but we have kind of a picture of who not to ever work for as a customer. And if they meet certain criteria, no matter what, if they say they have money, if they say they're ready to go, we are so careful. We actually have a special contract for certain kinds of people like that we know we're going to get abused. We know it's going to be rough, and so we protect ourselves to the nth degree. Fortunately, we've been able to identify who those kind of customers are really quick, and then really just engage with customers who see our value, share our vision, understand how software is and how complicated and expensive it is. And that's helped us to grow and do this successfully. So, why? Probably a lot of this comes out. Why did I start my own company? A lot of it was just that I could see that I was frustrated. It was so hard to get things done. I didn't want to sit in 50 meetings and hours and weeks to figure out how to get something done. I just wanted to do stuff fast. And so that was a big reason. Another one is that I was already programming for fun. I would do it on the side. I would do it for fun. I would stay up late at night just for kicks, writing a new app. Like I said, it was a maverick. I wrote, for the elders quorum I was in, I wrote a home teaching management application that would chart and graph and have all these reporting things in it for home teaching of all things. But it was just fun. So I figured I might as well just get paid for doing what I already think is fun. Another big reason was, while I was at New Skin, I felt so hampered by some of their policies about time off and about pay grade jumps. And I thought, well, how can a company like that tell me how much I'm worth? What if I'm doing 10 times more than these other people? Shouldn't I get paid 10 times more? Well, yeah, that's what being an entrepreneur is all about. If you think you can do more, then you gotta get your own market. I felt like I had freedom issues, about having to report and report where I was. And basically, I just wanted to define my own job and write my own future. I got bored really fast in certain positions, and so now I've been able to just kind of set up my own thing so that I can work on what I want to work on. I can focus on to the level I want to focus on it, and not ever be bored at work, because it's always just extremely thrilling to be envisioning the next greatest thing that we can be doing. So, some of the lessons I learned. First of all, you need to understand what drives you. And it took me a few years. Even when I was in college, I didn't really understand that I didn't want a director or manager position. Even when I was a director and a manager, I didn't even understand what was really my passion, what fueled me and made me energetic and excited to work and got me up in the morning. But over 5 years or so don't be in a rush, but it took 5 or 10 years to really figure out what I am, what I'm good at, what I love to do, and how to convert that into being paid for it as an entrepreneur. So figure out what just keeps you up at night in a good way and just makes you fuel with energy and excitement. Then figure out how to turn that energy into clients and customers and a market. The next lesson was to take smart risks. Warren Buffett says, risk comes from not knowing what you are doing. And there's a lot of truth in that. I do quite a few things. I like to snowmobile, I like to kiteboard, and maybe a few other extreme sports. And more I'm seeing that those are not as extreme as you would think. There is some danger in them, but the danger comes from not knowing what you're doing. So in business, the danger comes from not knowing. Doesn't mean you shouldn't take a risk. Just protect the downside. Protect what you've already built. But don't be afraid to expose yourself to risk and take a big jump. One book that I read by Richard Branson, kind of his story of starting the whole Virgin Empire that he has going. Fascinating book, a little irreverent, but his whole story is amazing about the risks he would take that would take him to the next level. And when I read that kind of stuff, it really puts me in the mood to take a risk and do something, envision something a little crazy, a little bit wild. And if you look at even current examples, like probably a bunch of you have heard or read, Steve Jobs' autobiography. Show of hands, if you've had the time to read that. I know you're in school. It's hard to read a long book like that. But, man, if you want an example of someone who could dream and envision something amazing, that was him. And it took him almost an entire decade of failing to get to the point to where he was set up to succeed and figured out all the parts. But when he would think of something, he wouldn't think small about it. He would think huge, like take over the world kinds of thoughts. And he would just push and push and push for that. He was unafraid to call any company or any CEO and talk to them about what he was trying to do. And I would suggest that as the same. As an owner of SolutionStream, when I was in more of a sales role, I kind of relished the thrill of calling any company and trying to talk to any CEO and get them on the phone and have a conversation. It takes some guts, but that's how you get moving. The next one, kind of going back to that 10,000-hour rule, is try to be the best at something. Whatever is your passion, it's great if that's also what you can get the best at it. And by the best, I mean just get to know everything you can find out about it. To the 10,000-hour rule, he says 5 years in the industry, which basically equates to 40 hours a week, 5 years of work, of really focused study, practice, and learning will get you to be an expert in that industry. And that's to be the expert. So if you wanted to be an expert violin player or an expert skier, 40 hours a week, 5 years of your life, and you should be at the top of your game along with whoever else in the world's an expert. I contend and kind of think that if somewhere in year 2 or year 3, 2,500 to 5,000 hours, you are good enough to really make a difference. You're not going to be the best at it, but you're good enough to make good money at it, and you're good enough to stand out in terms of competitors and anyone else. So don't feel like you got to wait 5 years or 10,000 hours to be somewhere. Somewhere in there, 2,500 to 5,000 hours, you're gonna have something pretty good going on. So it kind of goes to my next point here of always be learning. I feel like that sometimes because I take on too much stuff. I really like to just read and understand everything I come across, any new market. You guys ever listen to TED Talks? I have more time than you might. You're in school. But the TED Talks, that are out there. There's one called, I can't even remember the name of it, but it was this guy who wanted to help his friend who was this unbelievable artist who became a quadriplegic. And in just a matter of 1 or 2 short years, he became the leading expert in technology that was eyeglass retina tracking. And he invented these glasses that would track that guy's retina, and he could actually paint with his eyes. So they put these on, and they had this huge billboard that he finally could paint again. He could change colors, he could draw, he could talk to people, even though he was a quadriplegic. Incredible. But the thing is that he came out of nowhere from that. He wasn't an eye doctor. He wasn't a technologist. He put together a team, and in a few years he figured out a brand new way of doing something. And I just think that comes from always learning. Never shut the book on your education. In fact, I would say these past 5 or 10 years I continue to learn more and more every year than I learned in school. And if I ever feel like I'm getting bored at something, I just crack open a new book about a new industry and dig in. Kind of goes to the last point. If something stops being fun, change it up. So at work, if I'm doing something that starts to feel a little bit like drudgery, then my passion's not in it anymore. I'm not probably pleasing customers as well anymore. I'm not feeling fulfilled. I'm going to do my best work when I'm feeling excited, fulfilled to get up in the morning. I remember talking to my uncle a few years ago, who he was making good money. He was in a good job, but he just asked me, he was kind of bored with his job and had been in it for decades. And he said, do you like your job? Referring to SolutionStream, I said, man, I can't wait to get to work every single morning. I'm so excited every day to do my work. And he couldn't believe that. It was incomprehensible. And I couldn't believe that someone could go to work and be that bored and be that frustrated for years at a time. Don't let that happen to you. All right, so now maybe the nuts and bolts stuff. Our company gets stuff built. We do websites, we do web apps, we do mobile stuff, we do databases, software, basically anything on the internet that you can see, or any mobile app, we can build that. We have teams that have done stuff like that. Everything except for games. We've never done any games. We have built various versions of everything for about 10 years. So I thought I'd throw out a few pro tips. I mean, I could go on for hours about just this, tips on technology and stuff, but I just, today off the top of my head, picked out 4, 5, or 6. So number one is software is really expensive. Don't underestimate, if you're in technology and you're thinking about doing a web play, how expensive software is. I mean, on the low end of things, to get the most basic web app or a mobile app done, $5,000. It doesn't matter if it's an employee or a contractor or what. It's going to be minimum of that, and that's like bare bones. Probably a decent app goes up to $50,000, $75,000. Mobile app to get noticed. That's not talking marketing or anything. That's just development costs and design. In terms of websites, it's a little more expensive than that. 10 is kind of the bottom range, bare bones website with half a dozen pages, a link to a database, a social media marketing campaign, 10 to 15K, up to hundreds of thousands of dollars easily. If not, you get to big websites, they're spending millions of dollars in development. Don't let that dissuade you, but just be aware that it's expensive. Second point is, this is a mantra we live by: good, fast, or cheap. Pick 2. So that means if you want it good and fast, it's not going to be cheap. If you want it good but cheap, it's not going to be fast. And if you want it fast and cheap, it's not going to be good, right? So it's an immutable law of software development that in order to have something good, and if you want it fast, you're going to have to be able to spend money. If you want it good, plan on spending money, period. Third thing would be, there's just a bunch of tough choices in tech that you got to be prepared to make. Do you do it in Java, .NET, or PHP? What back-end database do you use? Do you have a mobile play? If you do you do Android? Do you do iPhone? Or do you do HTML5 and try and capture both? I mean, I could go on for half an hour about all those kinds of choices. They're tough. And if you make the wrong choice up front, it can kind of paint you in a corner later on, and you find a lot of companies having to rewrite their stuff, rebuild it. Again, don't get analysis paralysis, but it kind of goes to the next, actually to this point right here, rely on good tech advice. I'll skip that other one for 1 second. Get good advice. If you're building technology stuff, don't just trust another student. You know, I know he's passionate or she's passionate about it. It's great. They need to be involved, but you need to talk with someone who has 5 or 10 years of experience doing good software and get really good advice so that you're moving in the right direction and you don't get painted into a corner. Otherwise, you end up throwing away money, wasting time. A year or two goes by, and you're not where you want to be. So back to this other point of getting good estimates. That's a hard thing to do. It's one of the hardest things we do at our company. When someone walks in, I can't tell you how many times we have this conversation where they say, I want a website, and then they give me 1 or 2 lines. How much would that cost? And, it's kind of like me saying, I want a house that has 5 bedrooms, that's 3,000 square feet, and a 2-car garage. How much does that cost? Well, in reality, you could build that house for $200,000 or $2 million, right? All depends on what you put in it. All depends on how good you want it. And websites are exactly like that. So in order to get a good estimate, people throw us varying levels of detail. And if it's not good detail and if it's not enough detail, the estimate is no good. So be careful as you're trying to kind of estimate software or project or startup costs that you are starting from a good base of good detail, good data, and a good estimate. And that kind of brings us back to this point. Get good advice when you're getting estimates so that you know the rates and the size of the project and the technology you're using is going to get you where you want to be. And then my last point there, which sounds kind of weird, but I believe it more now than ever, is all that stuff, all that said, building the software of it, even though it's complicated, it's technical, there's all kinds of learning, there's all kinds of acronyms, it's not the hardest part about launching a software-based business. I believe the hardest part is having the right idea to start with, forming the right team, having a good marketing plan, having a good distribution plan, a good pricing model, and figuring all that out is harder. I can build the software, no question about it. It can be done, and even though it is difficult, maybe I'm speaking from 12 years of experience, but it's not that difficult compared to doing the non-technical stuff right. So don't misunderestimate the software side or the non-technical side either. All right, so lastly, and this is just a quick little note of caution. I mean, it's easier than ever to build all these things. I mean, looking back the past 5 or 10 years, what has changed? It's unbelievable the kinds of tools and systems and networks and things that are out there. I mean, the fact that you could have an app on an app store that would instantaneously have millions, tens of millions of potential customers or exposure to, amazing. The fact that on LinkedIn or Facebook you can tweet or message out to people, on Twitter, and get your word out to so many people, that's incredible. The fact that you can use software that helps drive your sales, that helps drive your SEO and your PPC. The fact that you can, within 20 minutes, I could have you on a website outsourced and paying a contractor in Philippines or in India and building something for you. I could have that set up in 20 minutes and they would be working for you right now, offshore. So I mean, there's so many things that make this so easy these days. But if it's that easy, what's the risk? What do you have to pay attention to if that's the fact? So did you know that 9 out of 10 aspiring entrepreneurs are starting web-based business? That's really interesting. I mean, and I see that too. when I mentor students and come down here to BYU and talk to people, it's all about Facebook. It's all about social. It's all about gamification. It's all about Groupon, Coupon. I mean, there's all these popular plays that are out there at any given time, and they get a lot of notice in the media, and everyone thinks, that's what I want to be doing. That's where the money is. But if 9 out of 10 people are doing something, personally, that's usually not where I want to be, trying to do that exact same thing. The guy who said this said, I'm troubled by all these web-based businesses. It's precisely because they are less difficult, less expensive, and less risky. When you've scrounged up every last cent and put it all on the line, success or failure becomes a matter of survival. So his caution there, and it's only that. I'm not trying to discourage anyone from starting a web-based business, certainly. But be careful about not following the herd, right? Be careful about not just charging into the bloody ocean, if it is, to use a term. His point was 10 years ago, all the businesses that were being started are the brick and mortar normal businesses right now that are fueling our economy. And he's worried about in 10 years what's going to happen if back then you had to put everything on the line or fail. And when you did put it all on the line, the companies that survived it made awesome businesses. The caution, I guess, here is maybe there's elements of this that are just a little bit too easy. So think hard about what it is you're trying to build and if you're really committed to do it. You can't do it on the side very well or piecemeal. Just be ready to throw all of your energy and weight behind something. So, yeah, that's my point. If you're launching your ideas going into a super crowded and noisy market, just because all those things are so easy doesn't mean that that's where you should be. Trying to be heard amongst a billion other web-based business or apps on the App Store, that is the hard part these days. So try and find that blend that gets you noticed but also leverages the technology of the day. I can't see my logo there. But anyway, that's kind of what I want to share today. We end now and have time for questions and answers? Yes. Okay. Okay, thank you.